Good evening and welcome to the Brookfield Zoning Commission regular meeting. Today is October 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. This meeting is being held in Town Hall Room number 133. We will now convene the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Next item up is number 2, enforcement. Oh, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. This is my favorite part too. I don't know why I did that. We'd like to introduce the commissioners, starting from my far left, if you would please.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Daryl Pratt, regular member.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Vishendra Komar, vice chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Thank you all. Next up, item number 2, enforcement. Zoning Enforcement Officer's report. Mr. Lally.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome.
47 High Ridge Road. I did an inspection out there last week with the town attorney. There's a new trial date set for that. Property owner is trying to make some headway over there, but the next trial date has been rescheduled for November 30th. He is trying to get the property cleaned up. He has made some substantial effort, and it's getting there, but it still needs a lot of work. So there's a new trial date of November 30th, so I'll have another update hopefully after that as to where that's going to go.
Excuse me, Mr. Lally. If you prefer, I can ask at the end, but I did have a question about this, whichever your preference is.
Sure, ask me now.
I just noticed that today was the trial date, so why was it changed?
Because the trial date was changed because they gave them an extension. The applicant, or Mr. Salas, had asked for a extension of time, so the town attorneys had granted that for him, a 30-day extension, I believe it was. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Moving on to 2 Yankee Drive, I spoke to Mr. Moscato today. He's going to be relocating the shed, bringing it into compliance. He was going to go through a local engineering firm to represent him for ZBA, but the cost was too expensive. So I spoke to him today, and he will be applying for a shed permit and having Barnyard move the shed into where it meets the setbacks. So, 2 Bonnie Road, the Medina residence, she filed an application for an accessory apartment. That'll be on the November 9th agenda for the Zoning Commission to review. So that's been filed with the office. That's moving forward. 5 Stony Farm Lane, the Rodriguez residence. I was out there again today. There's been no changes, so I'm going to be moving this to a cease and desist first thing tomorrow morning. So cease and desist will be going out to this property owner for removal of the debris, the concrete blocks and stuff that's sitting out there in the front yard. So. 31 Green Knoll Drive. I don't have a current update at this time. Maybe we can talk about this after informal discussions with the commission. But as of right now, I don't have any new update on this property. No, absolutely.
I did send my email that everyone had a copy of last time to the attorney who was working with their attorney. She kind of apologized to me. She missed it. I followed up after our last meeting, and I did get a response that she was pushing for it. I do know that she spoke with the attorney on the other side. I don't know if they've come to a resolution, but I left off saying that the commission wanted soil testing done, that the commission wanted, that they're going to have to go an excavation permit out because of the amount of fill that's going to be removed, and that the remediation plan wasn't satisfactory, and they'll be filing a permit with this commission. So, waiting for the response back, but I do know it was relayed, but only this week, so.
So how long do they have before we start?
That's entirely up to the commission as well. I know that they're in communications. I don't like to pursue strong enforcement action when they're talking to us still. But that's my own personal belief. I know you've had this living with you a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, if I may, I would only say that I subscribe to your philosophy as well, but after 14 months in an aquifer area, when the fill looks like it is contaminated, it seems like we've been more than patient, almost recklessly so, I would fear.
So, right now, the commission can actually, based off of your regulations, you have to tell the zoning enforcement officer to issue a citation to go forward for that step, or they can issue another notice of violation and give them 30 days.
Mr.
Based off of the citations, it has to be done by the commission still.
Mr. Kane?
Mr. Chairman, if it, please. I agree that I think some additional action needs to be done. However, we're in the middle of the zoning enforcement officer's report. My suggestion might be that we take this up under our informal discussion there. I do think, and I know from our conversation at the last meeting that, several commissioners here were interested in getting additional action on this, and I do think we need to have a little more robust discussion.
Well, if I may, then to that point, why don't we let Mr. Lally finish his report and then we can come back to it, rather than wait till the end, but good point.
Moving on, 327 Candlewood Lake Road, Copolino property. This is right across from Lakeville Towing. Received a cease and desist on the 2nd of October. He had 10 days to comply with the order. Today is the 10th day. There's been no response, so I will be going to a citation on this one, which will institute the new fines of the $150 a day, so.
Good.
Moving on, 1 Rachel Farm Road, here's another one. Received a complaint on Tuesday. Both myself and Ms. Barkowski went out there. There's excessive filling in the back of the property. Numerous amounts of material were brought in. I spoke to the resident through a Ring doorbell. I indicated to them that they needed to cease and desist all operations. They continued to do it. So I went back out there yesterday with a cease and desist order. I taped it to the garage and I handed to the front door. And she did reach out to me this morning. She is trying to cooperate. And I'll have another update on this for the next meeting. She has yet to fill out any applications, but we are working with her, and she has been very cooperative so far. I have her phone number and her email, so they didn't realize that they needed a permit to bring in as much material as they did. So, and that one also is in the aquifer protection zone, just to let the commission know, so it's another one coming forward. So, although from what I can see, the material does look halfway decent material, but again, until it's tested, you don't really know. Moving on to 89 Wisconneer Road, the Gone residence. This woman, she had filed an appeal in the appellate court. Our town attorney did a motion of contempt, and this is back on the agenda now for 10/23 this month. So that's where that one's going. So I'll have an update after the 23rd as to where that's going. So. The judge already found her in violation, so it's just a matter of the damages that are gonna be awarded to the town now, so that's what we're waiting on, so. And then 35 Hidden Brook Drive, the Torres residence, again, that was sent to the town attorney, and I don't have an update at this time on that, so.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Mr. Kane, did you want to go back to the Green Knoll matter?
It's up to, we do have an agenda here, Mr. Commissioner. and,
Well, it's under enforcement, so.
All right, then probably now's the best time to do that.
Sure. Well, I would only say that I think we need to do something. We can't continue to wait on this. That's my opinion. It's in the aquifer protection zone. We've been more than patient. And it has the appearance of we're just running out the clock here. This is a pretty serious matter. And that's about what I have to say.
Are we issuing, if I may?
Please.
Yeah, where are we with the fines with this? Were they given a specific date to submit a plan?
So they have submitted a plan. I believe the commission has received it before. They reviewed it. They have received previous fines. They paid them before. We can mediating the situation and finding action and kind of go forward from there.
Yeah, we have your email that was dated September 15th, so that's almost a month ago. And the commission wanted the following addressed: soil water test and approved fill is clean, amount of fill removed needs to be increased. They claim they didn't know the amount, but then they sent a letter with some number, so I was confused by that. But it would seem that we need to start citing them and issuing fines, because this is moving way too slow.
Well, I would second that, and I'd like to hear from some of the other commissioners, but I think we need to get back put them on notice that we start moving this ahead. I think the notice of violation is an excellent idea as a starting point. Again, specifically listing the things that you've requested already, or the commission's requested already, and let's start the process up here. I don't see that anything that's in that request should take this much time. It doesn't seem to be something that's all that difficult here.
If I may ask a question,
Please.
do they know that there
They have
is
an
an
attorney-
ultimate fine
They have an attorney who's very well aware
of,
the
of,
fines have changed. Attorney Marcus represents the other
Yes.
party. And
so he's aware?
He knows where the commission stands on this and knows that exactly what I said, that the plan wasn't adequate, the soil testing has to happen, and there has to be an excavation permit. But,
And there's no date?
there was no date in that conversation because unfortunately with this, since it isn't legal, it's a game of telephone. I call that attorney calls that attorney talks to their client. So, that makes it a little bit more challenging than dealing with it a little bit more directly.
What about, once again, asking the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting to cover the cost of hiring our own agency to just pay for the test, finding out how much that costs? Gwen and I were thinking it might only be a few $100.
It depends on what you want to test for.
Mhm.
It ranges.
It ranges.
It ranges
I'm
greatly.
still a fan of doing that, and then asking them to pay for, the cost of our test.
Once we receive an application, I would rather go the citation route, because once we receive an application, then there is a mechanism in the fee schedule that any kind of testing that you require associated with the application can be done and it gets incurred on that. I know it's been going on for a while, but right now, I don't see a mechanism in which I can ask the Board of Finance for money to pay for something that has not been, that we have zero budget for. Like, it's not like we have some form of remediation budget that I can take it out of.
But
After
if-
14 months,
If we can-
a couple $100, and we're getting money from the
Not yet.
situation.
Not yet.
Right,
Not yet.
TBD, we should be getting money from the fines.
Well, that doesn't go to
To
us.
To
It
use.
doesn't sit on the board's bank account.
Mr. Pratt?
We're running out of time. We only got a couple more months before the ground's frozen. So, I mean, whatever we gotta do to motivate this person, I'd say we do it.
I agree.
I agree.
14 months
Mr.
is a
Kane?
Long time.
Yeah, I second the idea of moving ahead with the notice of violation. However, I do disagree with the concept of us interjecting ourselves into the testing routine. This is all on the client,
The applicant.
the applicant here. This is all their issue. They created it. If we interject ourselves in this, now we become a party to this. Our responsibility simply is to issue them a notice of violation, fine them if they don't do that, tell them exactly what they expected to do. They're adequately represented by knowledgeable attorneys. So this is, I think the issue is just that it's gone beyond a reasonable period here. And so I would fully support a notice of violation, followed up by a fine if we don't.
I think
Have
there
it.
needs to be a due date.
Yes.
That's it. You go past this date and you get $150 a day.
Mr. Chairman, should we jump right to
Mr.
a
Timmerman.
citation? I mean, because they've already been cited, paid the fine, and it seems important enough to, start the clock on these.
I would defer to the expertise of our professionals here, but I think we should take whatever action is appropriate that reflects the seriousness and the urgency of the
Incentivize.
situation.
Mr. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Kane?
Yeah, I believe, I concur, I agree with Commissioner Timmerman, but I believe the starting process is the notice of violation. Then we have to give them a reasonable period of time to start that, and then at that point in time, fines would be certainly appropriate.
You can give them a notice of violation saying if the remediation application, for example, isn't received by this date, we will issue citations. Citations will start going from that. Then once we hit that date, if we haven't received anything, you issue a citation starting from the date that it's issued, pretty much. So, but it's up to the commission to determine how long they would like to.
1 week?
Yeah, I mean, really, because again, we're in that 2-month notice before it's frozen. They
Day.
can't move.
It's been 14 months. 14 months we've been talking about this.
I'd like to hear from the land use director's recommendations.
I would suggest, I mean, minimum 10 or 15 days, just about mail, that's the minimum that we normally give anyone. And unless they are currently doing action, in which case a cease and desist is the immediate. They have stopped.
Yes.
They,
To my understanding, yes, yes.
They've stopped what?
there's no more fill action.
There's no more field action, there's nothing being done there, to my knowledge.
What hasn't been for a while, has it?
No, no, yes.
So would the commission support, or would you recommend a November 1st date? That's a few weeks here. We do have,
Adequate,
Yeah.
but if you don't receive that, then we can issue the notice of violation tomorrow.
And say the remediation plan has got to include the points that we find acceptable. Just so because they already submitted one, but the problem is it's not acceptable to us.
They are aware of that, so, but they didn't submit an application, so I kinda left off, they submitted a remediation plan to you.
Yeah.
They owe us a permit, they owe us an excavation permit, not just a remediation plan, because they're talking about removing over 100 cubic yards.
Mhm.
That anything over 100 cubic yards within a year requires a permit, so they owe us a permit, in addition to just saying that they're gonna fix the problem.
What's the permit fee on that?
Talk
Yeah,
about that
is-
later.
is it in here? Is it in
Well,
this guy?
it's on the pink sheet, it would
Let's
be
see.
an earth removal of
Would be
$450 currently,
Earth removal.
all the way down the bottom. The earth,
Earthworks.
Oh,
no, it's not called earth,
do you see it?
almost the last one.
Earthwork and grading permit?
No, that's the new one,
That's the new one?
yeah. The current one is,
excavation permit?
natural resources removal permit.
Oh, here it is.
450.
It's the.
450, okay, yep.
Okay.
So once they pay that to the town and get their permit, they can get started. But they just have not showed up
They have not showed up,
to get the
but,
permit.
yes.
Is it unclear what we're asking for, or do we need to formalize it by making a motion so that it'll be documented better?
It's up to you, Mr. Chair, I believe notice of violation being sent with an with a date of if we don't receive an excavation permit to remediate the property, we're going to immediately go forward with citations.
So today's the 12th, we could make it November 1st, and that would be 3 weeks from today.
That's
It seems more than reasonable.
a long
Is that agreeable?
You just want to have a quick show of hands as to everybody that agrees on that? or-
Well,
Does everyone agree
our
to
next
that?
meeting is October
26.
26. How many days is that?
2 weeks,
Is that enough time?
14 days. I think we were told a minimum, right, 14, 15 days. This way we're giving it an extra week, I mean.
Then there's less of a excuse if there's a problem, if it's not done, you know.
What's that?
There's less of an, you know, if you give them slightly more time, then there's less of an, a good excuse if it's
Right.
not done.
I think you'll be able to give us an update at the next meeting.
I will certainly be able to show you what was issued,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so if we could issue that notice of violation and a response date of November 1st, and also if we could get our town attorney to weigh in on the the issues? Because I think we wanted to add a stipulation to the remediation application about the testing.
She's aware.
Yeah.
It has been relayed to the town attorney that that was part of the desire of this commission.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions related to the zoning enforcement officer's report at this time? Are we clear on what we're asking, just before we move on?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Next, item number 3, review correspondence. There is none at this time, so we'll move to number 4. Review minutes of previous meetings, the last meeting being September 28th, 2023. Are there any questions or comments relative to the meeting minutes from last time?
I make motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
Well, actually, I have a couple of questions. By the way, great that everything is lined now, so you can just pick a number out, you know, and, so it's the second paragraph on the last page, lines 254 to 259. In the middle there, third sentence, it says Finance Committee. Does that really mean the Board of Finance? I think that's what it's supposed to mean, right?
Yeah, Mr.
Secretary Kame advised that the Board of Finance, right?
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what Finance
It's
Committee
Board of
it's referring
Finance.
to.
That issue came up at a Board of Finance meeting that
Right.
I was in.
So if I may, I would ask that that be changed to the Board of Finance. The next sentence down, it says that the commission may have to submit an FOI request. I think you meant to say Commissioner Holmes. And then the last sentence there, it says, line 259, Schellenberg, that she should provide the information via email. I think Attorney Schellenberg probably said could or would provide the information. Minor point, but it does change the meaning.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may just make a comment, I think the question, the issue that I was trying to communicate, and obviously didn't do a very good job, is anybody is certainly welcome to any information from the town of Brookfield, but the normal request, just for record-keeping purposes, is to file a FOIA request.
Mr. Chairman, also.
Yes, Mr.
We're
Timmerman.
in executive session, so that's privileged information, and so we can't share it publicly. That's why FOIA was the way to go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then lines 231 to 259, the actual, that whole discussion actually didn't take place during the commissioner comments and informal discussion. It took place when we had a discussion about a motion to adjourn, so it probably appropriately should be in under adjournment, because that's when the whole conversation took place.
231 to 259?
Yeah, 231 to 259, where it starts,
Move to under.
just any update on the Green Knoll Drive, that was in the midst of our adjournment, that all took place. And then lastly, it doesn't say who took the minutes, as far as I see. Maybe I missed it.
There was nobody here, it was taped.
Amy.
So someone, don't we typically say submitted by or whatever? Probably thinks it should probably reflect who did the minutes. That's all I have. And unless there's anything else, back to Mrs. Holmes, if you'd like to make the motion with those following requested changes.
I'd like to make a motion with Mr. Getz' requested changes to accept the minutes of the September 28th, 2023 meeting.
Do we have a second? Mr. Pratt seconded the motion from Mrs. Holmes to accept the minutes with the suggested changes. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next item up, number 5, continued public hearings. There are none, so we'll go to item number 6, public hearings. A, 854 Federal Road, Z-23-51, Emily Mitchell of AR Building Company, 310 Seven Fields Boulevard. Suite 350, Seven Fields, Pennsylvania, for Edward and Kathleen McCarty, 226 Great Neck Road, Waterford, Connecticut. Proposed text amendment regarding Article 5.1, design flexibility in the TCD zone. Public hearing set for October 12th at the September 14th, 2023 meeting. We're going to open the meeting at this time, the public hearing, rather, at this time. And I will read into the record the Brookfield Zoning Commission introduction to public hearing. Today's date is October 12th, 2023. This is a regular meeting of the Brookfield Zoning Commission. At this point in our agenda, we have scheduled a public hearing concerning the application of Emily Mitchell of AR Building Company, 310 Seven Fields Boulevard, Suite 350, Seven Fields, Pennsylvania, for Edward and Kathleen McCarty, 226 Great Neck Road, Waterford, Connecticut, application number Z-23-51, for a proposed text amendment regarding Article 5.1, design flexibility in the TCD zone. First, I would like to ask the members of the commission to please introduce themselves again for the record, starting with my far left.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Daryl Pratt, regular member.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Chandra Kumar, Vice Chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Thank you. We will open this public hearing by calling upon the commission's secretary to please read the legal notice of this hearing.
To the News Times Legals, from Amy Curran, Land Use Administrative Assistant, dated September 15th, 2023, for publication. Please print the following legal notice, September 29th and October 9th. Notice, the Brookfield Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 100 Pocono Road, room 133, at 7 p.m. on October 12th, 2023, for an application by Emily Mitchell of AR Building Company, 310 Seven Fields Boulevard, Suite 350, Seven Fields, Pennsylvania, for Edward and Kathleen McCarty, 226 Great Neck Road, Waterford, Connecticut. Proposed text amendment RE Design 5.1, Article 5.1, Design Flexibility in the TCD zone, Town Center District Zone. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications received. Files are available for inspection at the Town Hall. Gary Getz, chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. This application was formally received by the Commission on September 7th, 2023. The public hearing is only one aspect of the approval process and is for the purposes of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application and to allow expression of opinion by interested parties. Subsequent to this hearing, the Commission has 65 days in which to render a decision on this proposal. The final decision may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, or denied. Excuse me. After reading into the record the correspondence received by the Commission relative to this application, we will ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The presentation will be limited to 45 minutes. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. We will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Comments must be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public will have one opportunity to speak during this segment of the hearing and may also submit their concerns in writing during the public hearing. During this segment, the commissioners may ask additional questions. The bylaws of the Commission allow only for the presentation of similar positions in succession and preclude the intermixture of comments, pro or con. All questions and comments must be directed through the chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address so that your comments may be legally recorded. Please rest assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the Commission is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application, and in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. After the public comments are received, The applicant will have the opportunity to comment, and the time will be limited to 10 minutes. Are there any questions? We will now ask the secretary to proceed with the reading of correspondence, but I do not believe there's any correspondence at this time in the file. The chair would now hear the applicant's presentation, but the applicant has asked for a continuance until November 9th. So we will still proceed, but the actual presentation will occur at that time, unless there's any questions or concerns about that.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just intercede for a minute.
Please.
The planning commission at the last meeting, October 5th, they really weren't prepared with the passing of Mr. Van Heist, the chairman of the planning commission. So in speaking with them, they were a little unsure of the whole application and the process. So the applicant is going to be at the next planning commission meeting. Obviously, the zoning commission would be good to get their referral for this approval, or whichever way the zoning commission decides to go. But the applicant has asked to extend it until November 9th. This way they can get the planning commission referral to the zoning commission. So again, that was all just unexpected, with the unexpected passing of Mr. Van Heist, the chairman, unexpectedly. So.
Yes, thank you, and we all join in our sympathies for that sudden loss. So we will still, to follow our proper format, continue with this, and then we will move on. Does the audience have any questions of clarification before we hear comments pro or con? The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application. Hearing none, I'll move to the next item. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Hearing none. This item then is now continued until November 9th, at which time we expect to hear something from the Planning Commission as well.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you. Moving along. Next up on our agenda, number 7, old business. A, draft regulation change, cannabis sales and distribution. I believe in our packets we have some information relative to that. This time I think the expectation is that we will review this and also have a discussion about the content. So anyone please feel free at this time to jump in. Perhaps Mr. Timmerman, did you want to introduce it?
Sure.
Since you did a lot of work on that.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Basically, what I had done was take Commissioner Kane's draft and reformat it to fit our regulation formats. You can see in the section numbers that are included, 2.2, which is the terms, definitions, 4.2, section 4, which is commercial zones. So the permitted use tables, the prohibited uses, it's an adult-oriented business, so there was additions into that. And then finally, L&M, which happened to deal with both medical marijuana dispensaries and the cannabis moratorium, would be changed to add those. So what I did was first, on looking at section on the initial draft, authority, I covered that in overall authorities and of our regulations. They derive from section 1 of our current regs, and also references to the general Connecticut statutes and the various language that I put in to the various areas. And some of those things are mentioned in the definitions, and some of those things are mentioned further in where you talk about section 4.4A and et cetera. The purpose, the purpose on the initial draft was as a what do they call it, ordinance. Our purposes for regulations are already mentioned in our regulations. But I think in light of that, what we have to put down and discuss, because I didn't put anything down yet in the application, was the rationale for the requested change. So I think we have to kind of fill that in. Definitions, on the original draft, which was under 3 here, I just put back into our section 2, defined terms, that's where all our definitions are. And what I did was I grouped them under a major heading of cannabis, so it's under C, and then all those cannabis-related definitions that were in this section I put under there. So if someone wants to find out about cannabis, they can go to there and see, oh, what is it? So I just referenced the regs right there, Connecticut cannabis statutes, that is. And then what an establishment, a consumer, a cultivation, et cetera, all the way to the end, to transporter. We used to have just one definition, medical marijuana dispensary, which sat by itself. Now I moved that and grouped it under cannabis. As part of that, I deleted, I deleted the initial one and added it back in. So the initial one was under the M's, now it's under the cannabis major thing. So that's for all the cannabis stuff. Wherever I did, I referenced Connecticut statutes, especially, you know, if that's what's the guiding principle here and we hew to their statutes, best not to repeat what they have in case they change it, because we don't want to try to change it twice or keep in sync with them. It's easier just to reference it. And in fact, I could actually, in the PDF version, put hyperlinks in. So as soon as they click it, they can go right to the state statutes and find out what it is. 4.2A, the commercial district permitted uses table. 2 things I did. We had an existing under 6I medical marijuana dispensary. And so I just added to that to say, and retail marijuana / cannabis establishment. And they have some references to further in for details on what those mean. So I'd say C4.4A and L for medical marijuana, and then for retail C4A and M for all the retail establishments. Also, a new entry under industrial, added entry 9G. This is marijuana and cannabis production facility. So that would cover cultivators, micro-cultivators, production facilities. And so we talked about both of those things being only in the I-1 zone and only as a special permit. Further down in 4.2B, before we had prohibited medical marijuana production facilities, I deletes that because we want to include it now. 4.4A, which existed already, amending it and just amending it to add in addition to medical marijuana dispensaries, the other adult type things, including retail marijuana cannabis establishments and marijuana cannabis production facilities. So those are additions to that section 4.4A.1. And this, by the way, also has the restrictions of how close you can be to things. So that's when we set up the medical marijuana dispensaries, we wanted to ensure that, like alcohol or any other adult thing, we do not want to be too close to schools, close to everything else it says in here. And the definition of how to calculate that distance. 4.4L, the only change there is to delete the last sentence. Again, the last sentence used to read that production facilities were prohibited. So we delete that because we want to enable them. When I say we, I mean we want to put in the language here so later during the public hearing people can weigh in on it and we can decide then. And then 4.4M, replace the existing text, which at this point was a moratorium, and replace it with something that allows cannabis establishments, including production facilities, and I listed all the different production type facilities. So basically everything, and then recreational, which there's only 2 types of. So here's the full list, and then during the public hearing process, this list can be culled down, because when we do an application, we can't add anything after the public hearing is open, after the application's been put forth. But we can take things out. So we don't want to hamstring ourselves by not putting the full list in. And besides, I think it's good to give the public a chance, just like in the referendum, to look at what they like and don't like, and then tell us. And absent anybody coming, for example, nobody came to the medical marijuana dispensary public hearing, or except one person who was actually wanted to put one in, then being elected, well, not elected, but the elected officials, then have the opportunity to, do their job based on being elected. And so that's basically it. So not a lot of change, but some of the things were moved about. The biggest part was the definitions. Those took up the most words. The prohibition, let's see. I was looking at the other sections of the original one. Applications, those are already, for example, 6 applications for municipal establishments. Those are already covered in our section 8, applying for a permit, or in this case, special permit. Exceptions, I didn't think it was necessary to put the exceptions in because if the state allows it, then the state allows it. If we didn't want it to happen, we'd prohibit it. But the state already allows it. So I'm talking about delivery, hemp is already allowed. Cultivation for personal use, these are all references back to the Connecticut general statutes. Enforcement, we already have that through our existing section 9. Severability, we already have that in our existing section 1.1. And effective date, well, that's going to be determined by the public hearing. And after we go through our public hearing, deliberations, and voting, that can be decided then based on published dates and things like that, and guidance from the land use office. So, and I mentioned about rationale. I mean, the only thing I thought, just a quick thing for rationale, was, for example, to provide residents the opportunity to allow production and sale of cannabis products in order to provide residents the opportunity to access these products, and also so the town can benefit in any tax revenues resulting from it. So that's just putting that out there, but it can be something more better worded, less wordy. But that's like the sort of rationale I'm talking about. Also, maybe the attorneys have some better words than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This time, would any commissioners like to weigh in on Mr. Timmerman's fine presentation and hard work? Mr. Kane?
Yeah, I agree. Good job. My only first question would be on the commercial districts. We seem to be limited to the I-1. Does it benefit us any to allow it in other districts, warehousing, for example? I'm not sure if, I think C1 and C2 contain some warehousing. But that would be my concern if we're going to have a warehousing operation. I know in the industrial district it's more of a manufacturing concern.
Yeah, when we were first presented with this for the medical marijuana dispensary, the hard part was what's a possible place in town to do it when you have to maintain the distance away from all these non-adult type places like schools and churches and things like that. And it seemed like the one road was a commerce road in that industrial zone. But if it would have to be an analysis to look at C1s and C2s. I mean, I don't see, we can certainly open it up to that.
Well, what I'm thinking about all the warehousing and the manufacturing that's done off of Silver Mine Road.
That's industrial.
So then we're
Yeah.
okay there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, there's churches on Junction Hill, there's 2 churches there with schools. Silver Mine's probably not a bad area to do. I don't know if there's anything there, but, so that's why the I-1 zone was ideal, because it's kind of light industrial, and there's some, handy manufacturing things like that. And for the most part, there's not too many things that get in the way, like churches and all. Let's see, what else do we not allow in there?
But to Andy's point, if we are missing a spot, that would be good.
Yeah, that's where I'm
It
going
would-
with.
I would think it behooves us to make sure we're, you know, just to add C1 and C2, if we review those streets and
Yep.
see what's there.
Yep.
I mean, we have the problem on Grays Bridge Road, because I think we have some recreational facilities there.
Yeah. I mean, you could add them.
Is that the Golf Quest area? Is
No, I was
that,
talking about the ballpark,
Grays Ridge?
softball park.
But you can
Yeah,
add
yeah,
them.
Sandcut Road.
And there's
You could
still-
add them,
there's
but
still
it
distance.
behooves, I mean, it's incumbent upon the applicant to know, you know, are you too close for anything? So the applicant would have to go look at the property and then do all the calculations themselves. Whether there are any possible parcels for that, I don't know, but it doesn't hurt to allow it in other commercial areas. And then let the applicant figure out if it's possible, based on the restrictions. And the other two commercial zones are the CG North and South, the gateways going into the middle of town. Some of those are
CG
light
North and
industrial.
South.
So that's Federal Road north
Yeah.
of Newberry Village. And
Okay.
south is south of the interchange, exit 12 on Federal Road. with
Okay, those
Super
seem
Seven.
like good spots too.
And we
What
did have
about the area, headed on Federal, like, if you were gonna go up to the Y, but then you just stayed straight and went to Costco and like,
That's C2, C1
that's
and
C2.
C2, yeah. Yeah, so C1, C2,
like where the guitar hanger starts and then you got,
yeah.
That's
Rite
more retail
Aid
though,
and-
that's mostly retail.
But
What
it
if-
is C, yeah.
but it
Yeah,
is
it
C.
is commercial. So those commercial things, the C1, the lower part is big box, you know, the Costco's, the BJ's and stuff, all the way down to the line where Kentucky Fried Chicken is.
Is that still us? That's our town? Kentucky Fried
I don't know
Chicken?
if Kentucky Fried Chicken's, that's right over the line.
Stanley.
Close to it.
Yeah, it's
So it's
right over the
close.
line. And then C2 starts around Costco and goes up to the bottom of the Gateway South, which is right around, just before the interchange, right after Silvermont.
Here's the,
Cause Danbury's new shop, Butter,
Butter.
Bud R,
Yes.
is, kind of on, is it on Federal
Yes,
technically?
yes,
Like
right
it's
across from
on-
Applebee's.
It's
Yeah.
a pretty good spot, I think. It's not near anything, and
Yeah.
it's shopping district.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, I don't see why not. I'm thinking about it now, it's a good comment, because then the applicant will have to see, are there any schools or churches, anything, you know, within whatever the distance is.
Well, my main concern was to add in Grays Bridge Road, I think it's, what is it,
That's industrial.
Production Drive?
That's industrial.
Okay, all right, well then, again, I'm throwing this out to the commission, I think it's certainly fine just to limit it to an industrial zone. I mean, my thrust is that if we do have people who are gonna manufacture,
Mhm.
because we do have a healthy light manufacturing environment in this town, that would, and warehousing, there's also a distribution component
Yeah.
along there. That would be beneficial, and to have that. I don't see that as anything that would, increase our costs in this town. In fact, if anything, it would just probably increase our revenue from the machine base. I'm happy with it the way it's written, but we could, of course, if somebody wants to amend it in the future for a warehousing operation or something like that, that could certainly be considered.
Yeah, so, like extending it from, on the table, from CG North all the way out to C2, plus I-1.
I like that.
CG North, CG South, C1, C2, and Industrial 1.
So just, can you just go that, you would put it in, you would do CG North, you would do CG South,
Yep. C1, C2, it's already in
4.2.
I-1.
okay.
And the other ones, they're marine commercial, so
I don't think it really lends itself to that.
And the other corporate park, I don't think you should have those corporate type people buying pot.
Well, again, when you talk about that, you're looking at the retail sales. I was looking more at the manufacturing.
No, I'm looking at both.
You know, I'm thinking if we do have
This,
if you're manufacturing circuit boards, you can certainly manufacture CBD gummy bears there, so.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with.
Yeah, because they'll have to figure out if there's a school in the corporate park. Some of those corporate parks do have schools, but, you know, daycare. But if they can put it somewhere, it's not a small corporate park over there, then, yeah, why not? For production, you're talking.
All over.
Right, production. I don't see the town center district benefiting them in any way, but
Oh, it's
for that.
everybody.
No,
So
no,
I think marine commercial would be out, town center district would be out, but,
yeah.
um,
And dispensaries and retail, do you think, what are people's thoughts about the corporate park area?
And where is that?
That's the Berkshire Corporate Park, that's where Duracell is, and Emerson, that, they just put a big building in. Actually,
that is.
Duracell's not in Brookfield,
It's like
it's
up over the
in
highway.
Danbury.
Kind of over the
You
highway.
and Amphenol's going.
Yeah, in Amphenol.
Oh, that's Brookfield? Wait.
yeah, part of the corporate park, only a small portion, well, I shouldn't say a small portion, but only a portion of the corporate park is actually in Brookfield.
Is it by the movie theater? Is Duracell by the
Well, I mean,
Lowe's?
it would still need they all would still need a special permit. These aren't like as
Yeah.
of right,
Yeah.
so.
Like there's a popcorn factory, Lesser Evil. Is that Danbury, Brookfield?
Oh, that's Danbury.
That's Danbury.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought Duracell was over there.
So do we support extending, I guess the question that I would have, if I don't, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Please, Mr.
me
Kane.
dragging on here. Do we support, does the commission generally support adding, again, I'm speaking of the commercial side of the aisle here, the manufacturing. Do we support making the changes to those additional commercial districts? So it would read everything but MC and TCD, and it all would require a special permit.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is that, because again,
This one too.
the thrust here is to,
And then all special permit.
I don't support.
okay,
I do.
Well, if we put it in, we can always take it out during deliberation.
Yeah, if I may, I think I kind of align myself with Kurt's idea. It gives people something to discuss. It doesn't mean it's the final draft, but you certainly are welcome to express whether you support that or not. But I think it is fair to give everyone a good look at it, and then if you want to make the changes for the final, or when it has a public hearing, you can respond to that too, however it goes, but.
yeah, I just want to be clear, what I'm discussing is 4.2A, commercial district permitted uses table. So this is, again, my argument here, my,
Under
advoc-
9G, right?
well, 4.2A, it's on
Yeah.
page 4.5.
Yeah.
Page 4. My advocacy here is that Brookfield can certainly reap some benefits if folks want to manufacture products for this industry here in Brookfield.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Did you want to add anything else, Mr. Komar? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just wanted to give you guys something to think about, that what you're really supporting. You're supporting a drug. You're supporting that people lost their job, lost their life, still in prison for the use of marijuana today. And all of a sudden that people in Brookfield are supported and want to have retail store and hangout spot. You don't have to answer it, just think about it,
Yeah.
and we can discuss it in the next meeting.
And it's an interesting point, because we don't know if the Brookfield people support it. So we're bringing this forward, and then we'll find out. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And in absence of anybody actually coming in, and I hope they do, because I'd like some discussion from the public, sort of our own little referendum here, then we'll have, as a board, have to discuss it and decide.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I can concur with Commissioner Komar. I'm not in favor of recreational use, but what we're discussing here was industrial use and manufacturing. Personally, I have arthritis. I do use the product myself as a cream for my knees, so it does work. That would fall under medical. over-the-counter type stuff. So many folks, manufacture this stuff. It's available for pets who have different issues, or folks that have arthritis or palliative care. So again, I'm not opposed to any of that. I do agree with you, though, that we really should maybe take a very hard look at the.
I'm not against it, I just wanna keep it old-fashioned way, use it in your bathroom or in your hallway.
But they don't let you, I don't think the Connecticut General Stats lets you put it and have a lounge or something like that. If you go to the both Danbury locations, you can't consume while you're in there.
No.
You have to go somewhere. So, you're not gonna have, it's not gonna be like a cigar lounge where you get this, fire up right there. So I don't think you have to really worry about that. Again, it's something that it's a state thing. You
Well,
can't-
Okay, so we're
well, to
talking
his
about
point, in
making a
large ci-
purchase
Yeah,
and go private.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
You're not allowed to do it there.
yeah.
It's not-
Except in large cities, they have to have an area in public
Really?
to smoke. Yeah.
Even in
So
Connecticut?
Danbury,
In
yes, in yeah.
They don't have it there, though.
Well, they might not, but in bigger cities of a certain size have to have a public area for smoking pot, cannabis. We're too small, so we don't have to.
Well, it's no different than going to, a bar, right? And that doesn't serve food, right? It just has entertainment, whatever, there's plenty of them around. You have a spot to go, you still have to be responsible. You can't drive impaired by weed or alcohol, so I don't think it's gonna be, people just smoking in the street. I know New York City's, experiencing quite a bit of it right now.
Oh, you can't go to New York without
No, I hear you. But-
getting high,
Well,
basically.
There's no sidewalks to walk around here and,
We're trying to add some.
Well, yeah.
Actually, I think there's quite a few sidewalks. If you take a look at Federal Road.
More
now.
coming every day, yeah.
But again, it's illegal to do that, and you just can't walk around, so it's still illegal to do. So, I don't think you have to worry about that. But I do like everything else, making the changes, I'm good with it.
Any other commissioners have any comments, questions, concerns? Mr. Kane?
Yeah, I'm not, going to page 5 out of 5, I'm not supportive of, when it comes to cannabis establishments, I'm fine all the way down to 1D, but I'm not too happy with, and certainly don't support, 2A and 2B. So,
Well, that's where I figure in the public hearing, that's when we can get the input from the public and decide, because like I mentioned, if you don't have them here, they can't be presented to the public. You can't add them in after the fact. But you certainly can take them out. In fact, look at the EV, EV regs. There was a lot more in there, and then things were removed, nothing was added. So it is possible, based on, the public hearings and deliberations, to subtract things out.
Mr. Lucia, did you want to say something?
I don't know if it's obvious in here, but due to our town size, we would be limited to one recreational establishment anyway. They can't pop up all over the place.
That is actually incorrect. They changed the statute.
Oh.
There is no cap.
No,
So
well, we could set one though.
uh,
Well, that was my understanding, but okay.
I would want to look into that a little bit further, town attorney, since the state in and of itself took off a cap. I think it would be very interesting for a town to set what many towns have.
Yeah.
It hasn't been challenged yet. I don't know which way it would go.
yeah, that's very true. If I may just jump in there. It was,
Please, Mr.
it was
Kane.
removed on the last day of the session, not this last session, but the previous year's session. The very last day, it was promoted the entire session as being a 25,000 person limit per store. And then on the very last day, that was removed. So now you could actually have, there's no prohibition. You could have one on every corner. Liquor stores are actually more heavily regulated than this, from a space.
They view it like retail.
Yes.
So in case that retail is allowed, if you do not write your own regulations or have a moratorium or prohibitive, it is allowed in any zone that you would allow any kind of retail business for retail sales, not necessarily the manufacturing portion.
So that's, that's the main reason why I'm opposed to this, is that, I agree with Commissioner Comar's statements, but at the same time too, I think that we may be opening up a can of worms here for, on a retail side. Also, other towns have a fairly advanced retail operation, and our regulations do not put any transport in, the so-called dope dash thing now, where if you buy out of town, it will be delivered to you for a small fee. So we don't prohibit that. And that would be allowed under this, so, because it's allowed under state law.
Mr. Chair?
So,
It's gonna be
Mr.
driven.
Pratt.
Oh, thank you. It's gonna be driven by the consumer, you know, how many stores are gonna be, and you can't expect Brookfield to put even one in. I mean, you have to have for the amount of money they have to pay for their permitting and everything else, and the licenses to do it. I don't see it for many years down the road. I mean, you got two in Danbury, you got one right in Federal Road now, which is, you know, a 5-minute drive from here. Well, on a Saturday, it's about an hour drive, but any other time, it's a pretty quick drive, so, you know what I mean? So I think the concerns are a little overblown, you know?
Well,
I
also,
agree. I
yeah,
agree with Mr. Pratt.
There's distance regulations from other retail, just like alcohol. You know, you can't have them within a certain distance of each other. So that's the way this is read. You know, not only can't you be near residences or private schools or something, you can't be near all these other ones, other establishments, other liquor stores, things like that. Space them out.
But what would be the logic not to include this? If Danbury's getting all this tax revenue, why shouldn't Brookfield be able to as well? Don't you think we'd be missing out to limit?
Sometimes money
Retail?
isn't everything.
I've heard that though, but I haven't seen it. Is there been any definitive thing as to how much money's actually being collected by these towns? I mean, there's a lot of
The,
initial startup here, but
well, yeah, I don't know the total. Last month, recreational sales in Connecticut were 14 million in September and August.
It's amazing.
I mean,
That's a lot
they
of
don't have a
money.
breakdown by town on the Connecticut website.
well, again, that would be the kind of thing because, you know, there's been a lot of revenue that's been promised to towns, hasn't been delivered to towns. That's the key question here. You know, if you're gonna make a revenue argument.
So this is about bringing, I'm sorry, Secretary Andy, but this is about bringing revenue to Brookfield?
Yes.
So if crack, can bring in the revenue, would we support that too?
Crack is illegal.
Yeah, so were drugs too, Mr. Lucian.
Well,
Drugs were, I'm sorry, so were weed for many, many years.
but it's not now.
Did you not hear what I just said? People went to jail, people lost their job
I understand,
for these type of things.
right?
It was illegal just like crack.
Alcohol
Heroin,
is
whatever
illegal.
you call those things. I'm not against who smoke weed. I know a lot of people, it's just not my thing. But it's the same. It's like now all of a sudden it's legal and now we're just gonna support retail store and bring it into Brookfield. We're gonna compare Brookfield to Danbury. I lived in Danbury, it's a shithole. We're gonna turn Brookfield into a shithole now? I mean, I work-
Well, have you, Mr. Comer, have you visited the new shops?
No.
The Botanist?
No, but I know-
It's very nice.
I know a lot about.
It's very,
I know a lot about marijuana. I grew up in an environment
Just-
around marijuana.
well, just because it's
I know what it does.
there, doesn't mean all of our residents will be using it.
But it's still an option out there. It's still an option for resident, for kids to, we're
to-
still exposing it.
To
in-
Mr. Pratt's point, though, it might be overblown, because within a 5-minute drive, we can just go to Danbury and use one of their retail shops. So why shouldn't Brookfield be able to have a shop in the, close by? Like, basically, we share that road with Danbury, we share Federal Road
Well, that's not a bad idea. I mean, people
with
go,
Danbury.
people drive to New Hampshire not to pay taxes. I'm sure you can do that. You can go to Danbury and get whatever you need. It's like you don't do things like, sometimes in life, you just have to make decisions. You just have to go out of the way to get certain things what you want.
But again, it's gotta be fueled by consumption and by customers, right? So how long did it take us to get a small grocery store in town here? Because they wouldn't put one in because you got ShopRite, you got Stu Leonard's. Again, there's gotta be a need for someone to open up a store. So I think we're so far down the road before we see that. You know, really, I mean, if you look at what happened in Massachusetts, it took a long time for it to really start spreading out. And in the ones that are, like over, in, was it Great Barrington? That came in, there's a ton of them there. Well, now they're starting to pull them out, because they don't have enough business. It's supported by the consumer. If you got too many shops, they're gonna go out, just like if you had too many liquor stores, they're not gonna survive. So it's the same effect. I think we're just getting a little too carried away. I think it should be put in, we can take them out after the public hearing and go from there, but I really don't, I think we're putting too much pressure on it. It's gonna take a long time to really develop a view.
Anyone else, Mr. Kane?
Well, if I may summarize, I think everybody's in agreement with everything in here, except the only disputed point appears to be whether we allow recreational use or not. Personally, I'm against it. I would not want to see that added, but I'm fine with everything else that's in this document. With the changes that we discussed previously for the commercial zones. So I think it comes down to that, so.
Well, how many manufacturing establishments would be allowed?
Well, it would have to follow the zoning regulations in terms of distance, but again, this would be the type of thing like, where you have snack manufacturers now. I mean, whether we have a CBD gummy manufacturer or a packaging situation or distribution, that type of thing. But again, it's at the wholesale level. It's not.
I understand. I have to say, in New York, and this going back years, we have regulations about bars being 500 feet from one another and liquor licenses, and it just goes out the window because there's too much money to be made. So all those rules and regulations don't even apply anymore. We fought and fought and fought. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. So there's a bar to practically every store in my area. We don't even have retail anymore. It's just liquor and pot. So that's what we have to choose from.
Well, you're talking about
So what I'm
recreational,
saying
right?
is, yes, if we have regulations, yes. But then somebody comes in and says, well, I'm following the regulations, but, can you change those for me because I can provide this, or I can provide that. Or you get more tax revenue because I have a plant next to this other plant. I'm just putting it out.
Are you saying it's the slippery slope?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it happen time and time again.
Well, that's for the ZBA to decide whether they want to give a variance for distance, for example. And our zoning enforcement officer to apply, or us actually, if someone comes in front of us and says, I want to put in another production facility or something, we'll say, okay, have you done the distance calculations? And if they haven't and we have, we say, we can't allow you to do that. And we do deny, there's a, when someone's put a liquor store in, we're allowed 7 now, they have to abide by those distance requirements. They have to space them out. That's why they're where they are. They're not all in one row. And so at least in Brookfield, I don't know how it is in New York, but in Brookfield, that's the way we apply
Well, as I said, in New York, it changes. As
Yeah, but
people
in
want more and more,
Yeah,
then you
but-
have to change with the people. Just as Mr. Komar said, this used to be illegal. Now it's legal. It
Well-
doesn't matter what it's doing to people, but it's legal.
And that's why we're here, to say,
Yes.
what do we want to make legal? And that's what the public hearing's for, because it's not just us, it's the whole town. Whoever comes in front of us and has an opinion about yes or no, I do want retail, I don't want retail, I want them further apart, or something like that. That's what this whole process is about. So we don't make up the rules, we put forth rules, we
Oh, we
have a
do
public
make up the
hearing.
rules, but,
And then we have to get public input.
and then we change them.
We have to go by what the public says, or
Yes,
by
that's
whoever.
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
As the public wants more and more, then we change the rules.
Well, to back that up, Glenn, a lot of us want more alcohol, liquor stores, but we can't have
That's what
them. But we can't have them, because we have rules and regs that doesn't let us to have them, so.
That the rules and regs can be changed.
Okay, so what do we do in that case? We go different places and buy them, right?
Yes.
We can do the same with the, they can do the same with the marijuana.
Mhm.
You can go to Danbury and buy it,
Mhm.
right?
Well, I propose, we put these I put in the extra things, make the changes, And then we can put the application in, have the public hearing,
Mhm.
and see what the public thinks, and see what the commission thinks, because it comes down to both of us.
Well, if I may, Mr.
Please,
Chairman.
Mr. Kane.
Yeah, I think we're still at the same point. I think we all understand the situation here. It's important to note that anything that's done in here does require a special permit. Nothing in here is taken for granted. They will have to file a special permit. I do not support the recreational component of this. I support everything else that's in here. I think that would be the beneficial use. I understand everything that's been said. It's just that I just don't support that. I've seen if you do read the paper, it's not just tax revenue. There have been some problems in Stanford and a few of these other places, locations with this stuff. I do think it would increase our costs of policing and other costs associated with that. So I would be opposed to that, but I think at some point it's gonna have to come down to a vote. Do we add that in, or do we not add it in?
Well, I think that vote is best left for the public hearing.
Right, and then add them in for now.
Yeah, add them in for now.
And take them out at
And remember all the words you just said, because then you can say them at the public hearing.
So is there a consensus to leave it in for now, but if people have concerns, whether from feedback with the public or their own, we can then debate what the final result will be and whether we want to take it out, and then we could vote on it at that point?
Well, I think
Just
some
to
people.
move the process forward.
I think some people wanna include it and some people don't.
Right.
But we're not including it as the reg, we're
We're
including
including
it
it
as
as
an option.
the draft,
Yeah, the
right?
draft.
The draft, the
You know,
public hearing
for
draft.
the application to be submitted, and then the public hearing, you know, what comes out the other end of the public hearing would be this entire discussion we're having right now. But at the appropriate time, when it matters.
Right, I think invariably with an issue like this, people are gonna express themselves,
Oh,
you know?
sure.
But
And
I agree that maybe, we need to focus more on the process again, and we have a draft and how we wanna handle that,
Yeah.
moving the process forward. I don't think we have to be in a hurry, but I think people will still have an opportunity if they wanna feel strongly about a deletion or a change. We can do that later.
Mhm.
I'm not even warmed up yet. So I'm looking
Well,
forward
that's
to
fine,
that.
you're not arguing with me, you're arguing
So-
your point.
So your argument or your suggestion is that in lieu of a referendum, we submit
That-
this and then have a
in
public
fact,
hearing?
that's what we are doing, in lieu of that, because the Board of Selectmen didn't get their referendum set up and done.
Well, actually, just if I can comment on that, I mean, I think the question was, did they wanna do that? Or did they feel that zoning should do it? And I think the answer to your question is not that they didn't wanna do it, they thought it was zoning's responsibility. That's my understanding.
Well, remember, we gave them an ultimatum. If you don't do it within, 3 months or whatever the term was, then we'll do it ourselves. And so we're doing it ourselves. But I think it's in lieu of a referendum, since it is a public hearing. It's less expensive, that's for sure.
So what's the consensus at this point? Do we wanna come back and just leave it on our agenda and try to finalize it next meeting and then prepare a final application, or what's your pleasure?
Well,
Yeah,
if
I can put the words in, make the changes to the table, put an initial idea in for rationale, and then we can go over one final draft next
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
I
Sounds good to me, but everyone has to feel comfortable.
Yeah,
It's
I'd
not a
say-
final thing, that's the only thing I would stress.
Yeah,
Just wanna move it
As far
forward.
as the rationale goes, I don't know that we have to go that heavy. I was just thinking something to provide cannabis regulations for the town of Brookfield. I don't think we have to go into
Yeah,
a lot of detail there.
all right.
And I certainly support the changes to the commercial district. So is that
Which is everything, which was all those zones in special permit, to be clear, it was like
Yeah.
C, G, N, C. it
the
was
only
like
ones that
first-
were not in there were MC
And-
and TCD?
Okay, and all are special permit,
Yes.
Right.
commercial was special, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So that is an amendment Kurt will be making to his
Yes.
draft,
Yep.
And it'll be draft 2.
okay. And the rest stays the same, pretty much?
And then I put some words in for rationale. I
And
like
you-
Mr. Kane's words.
To provide cannabis regulations for the town of Brookfield.
Yes.
Is there any way we could get some data on Danbury's botanist? I mean, the new one, Butter, is too early to tell, but is there any digging we could do on financial stats from the botanist?
My guess.
Okay,
You would think, right?
You-
I mean, they gotta file a tax return.
right, like I,
Well, I think what you're referring to is revenue sharing with the state of Connecticut. My understanding was of the sales tax that was to be collected, 3% was supposed to go back to the towns or the location that it was in. I haven't seen that happen. I haven't seen anything that indicates.
so wouldn't the town be paid already? Wouldn't it get its money from this business and we would know?
I think that's a research issue. I think, you know, we've had, Connecticut has not always been very forthcoming when it comes to giving the towns the money that they're due and owed. I think if you looked at the way the bottle deposit thing was handled, that the state essentially confiscated all the money from the retailers that were putting out these machines and everything, and then they would have to develop an excess of funding. The state said, well, that's our money. If you're willing to go out and find which towns have gotten the big checks and how it works, I'd be happy to hear that information. I haven't seen anything for that, and personally, I have looked for it. I haven't seen it. So I don't know that they are actually distributing that money yet. I think it was an inducement, a promise, but in terms of, if you can
Well,
find some.
didn't that place open in the winter?
If you can find some
Okay,
checks that have been issued to the
January.
town and how much they're receiving in revenue, I think that would be interesting to hear.
It would. For sure.
Actually, they've been around a while, but they moved from Bethel over to Danbury, and then they changed the names. I don't know if it was bought,
Okay.
the old place, but.
Oh, interesting. I
But,
didn't know
but
that
it's an
either.
allocation of sales tax revenue based on this product. That's what people are what I would be interested in seeing.
Right, that's the data we need to know.
So out of the 6.35%, they're supposed to be getting a 3% revenue share.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Are we fairly sure about what we're doing moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll cover this again, and we'll table it for now,
Yep.
to be picked up at our next meeting.
We'll continue. We're gonna get a draft back. Draft 2 is coming back with the
Yes.
changes we discussed tonight.
October 26th. Thank you all. Moving on, new business, number 8, A, 439 Candlewood Lake Road, Z-23-54. Jimmy Brahimi, 36 LaSalle Road, West Hartford, Connecticut, 06107. Certificate of zoning compliance for patio, planters, tables, and umbrellas for a restaurant. Is
Mr.
the-
Chairman, the applicant is not present tonight.
The applicant is not present. Did the applicant notify the land use department?
Reached out to the applicant, he has not paid his application fee, and he's not responding at this time.
I think he's trying to sell it.
Is there a time frame on that, or does it just, we no longer consider it until they do?
If you'd like to continue to the next meeting, we'll reach out to him one more time. If there's no response, and the commission can deny the application.
We don't really have one yet. Without paying the fee, though,
Yeah.
it's still valid without paying the fee?
It's better practice to deny the permit for lack of payment and just have it on the record, so that way.
Okay. This time, the chair would be happy to consider a motion to deny this application for lack of payment, qualify for the terms of the application.
Mr. Chairman, if it please the commission, I'd make a motion that we deny this application since the applicant is not present and no fee has been paid.
Second.
Mr. Kame has made the motion, Mr. Komar has seconded the motion to deny the application Z-23-54. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, of course, the applicant would be welcome to reapply at a later date when they pay the fee.
Thank you, Mr. Kame, that's a good point. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. The application is denied at this time. Next item up, number 9, tabled items. A, revision of zoning fee schedule. Land Use Director. Ms. Barkowski, do you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this on any sooner, but tonight, there is a draft fee schedule that is based off of your previous fee schedule. The changes have been made in red. I pretty much went through, I plugged in certain numbers here, but they're definitely up for discussion and for the commission to decide in which way they would like to go. Another point that I would like to discuss with the commission and get their feedback on is how they feel about the design review fees, because I did not touch that particular section. How I currently changed it is I matched the applications with our procedural section in the zoning regulations. For example, I did a site plan application, which is something that we only had a modification for a site plan application before. I broke it down for a special permit application where it was something where we considered it a public hearing, which was that major fee. But having a special permit, it gave me the ability to kind of to distinguish retail versus commercial in different areas. So I don't know if the commission wants to go over this line by line, or if they want to table it to the next meeting since it was given late, or if you would like.
Thank you,
to
Ms.
discuss.
Barkowski. What's the pleasure of the commission? Would you like more time to review it, or do you have questions? Anyone? We could table it if you want to talk about it next time and give you, Mr. Pratt.
I do have a question. Can you explain that they're crossed out, and the lines that are crossed out on here in red? So are they in or are they out?
They're out. What's crossed out in red is removed items that was previously on your fee schedule, so that I've changed.
So this was the previous, and this is your amended.
Correct.
If anyone wants to take a look at this copy. Got it.
And that pink copy is still online,
It
since
is
we
still
have.
online, and then there should be a copy in all the zoning regulations in the appendix, which I believe Mr. Dillon told me.
So you've done a good job basically of consolidating and streamlining and making it simpler and more consistent and fair, all at the same time.
That was my attempt.
Looks good.
Mr. Chairman, I.
Yes, Mr. Timmerman.
So the customary home occupation, conversion of single-family dwellings, those fall up into the zoning permit?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Well, actually, excuse me, I'm sorry. The conversion of single-family dwelling is an accessory apartment application, and
Oh.
that falls down into your special permit.
Okay, yeah,
You require a special permit.
yep, okay.
So that would be a $150 fee? Is that what you're saying?
For residential, yeah.
So for special permit for residential, it would be the $150 plus the 60 state. That's all plus the state fee.
Okay.
The customary home occupation, however, would be under just the normal residential, which would be the $25 zoning fee.
Okay. And we're reducing that?
We added $5 to it.
All right.
Big increase.
25%.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, at this time, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion to table this item for our next meeting on October 26th, and at which time I hope the expectation is that we can come to a decision and finalize yet another accomplishment of our still relatively new land use director.
So moved.
Okay,
You need a second, right?
sure.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Kame has made a motion that we table this item, and Mr. Komar has seconded it. Is there any discussion?
Well,
Mr.
we're
Kane?
continuing it till the 26th, is right?
Yes, we're going to continue this to our next meeting, October 26th. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. The item's tabled to October 26th. Thank you. Next item up is number 10, Commissioner comments and informal discussion. Item A, Commissioner training status. I know we had discussion about this. There was perhaps some confusion about whether it was credits or credit hours. I don't know if there's anyone with any clarification or anyone who wants to comment on this item at this time. Mr. Kane.
Well, I've got 3 hours in. I know I owe you some more time. Did we decide whether it was hours or credits or?
Did you see if there's a spreadsheet that went out again? It also went out today via email.
Yeah. and
Ooh.
let me-
There might
Did
be a
it?
copy in your packet which shows.
That was a couple ago.
that
It was a couple weeks.
Maybe it just went out email today to each of the commissioners that easily breaks down what classes have been done that we have record of and what needs to still be done
Okay,
for
I haven't
each of
seen
you.
that yet.
It's very easy. Amy Kern did a fantastic job. It's red and green. Green means go, you're good to go. Red means you have to do these classes. Color
Okay.
coded.
Yeah, I see it here now.
That was, who was that sent out by, Amy?
Amy,
It's today.
and if we don't have record, also, please, everyone double check to make sure we don't just aren't missing an email from you saying, hey, I did commit, or I did do those credit hours, I did go to that class.
So we also had a prior spreadsheet. Is this still accurate then, with the highlighted
The
ones?
green and red one is up to date, so that,
So somebody who looks like they're compliant may be needing to do more
if
this
you were
time?
compliant, you were still compliant.
Oh.
No additional, requirements have been put on the commissioners,
Okay,
but perhaps you submitted more information since then.
thank you.
I get two.
Any questions about that?
Thank you for sending that out.
Sunburn.
Any other comments? Hearing none, the next item up is, Mr. Pratt, did you have something?
Nope.
I saw you move your hand there, I
Oh, no,
wasn't
okay.
sure.
Make 'em hand
All
motion.
right, next item 11 is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Kane made a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Pratt seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. We're adjourned.